Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar today on data readiness, looking at why and how your data will and can make or break the success of AI in 2026. So we all know that AI is reshaping the legal sector faster than ever. But one topic continues to sit at the center of every strategic conversation that I have, you have, and that is data. As we know, as intelligent assistants and agentic workflows move from experimentation to practice, firms are discovering the truth that AI can only be as effective as the data beneath it, and that fragmented repositories, inconsistent metadata, gaps in governance are holding back AI initiatives that should be delivering impact. Today, I'm here to unpack this with Brandall Nelson, who is Legal Solutions Director at NetDocument. Brandall was previously a Senior Associate at Freshfields. Immediately before joining NetDocs, he was Legal Counsel at transformation company Savage. However, he's also had a really interesting career outside of that. Hi, Brandall.
Hello, well, I'm very happy to be here. And welcome,
Thanks so much.
everybody.
Yeah, welcome, everybody. Tell us about your career history. So I thought I'd do the whole shebang, but then I thought you'd do it better. So you have had a pretty varied career.
So I was lucky enough to get some really good legal internships while in law school and immediately after. So I worked in the public sector, at the State Department, at the Securities and Exchange Commission in Washington, D.C., and at the World Economic Forum in Switzerland, in Geneva. So those were all kind of pre-Freshfields when I was really going into transactional legal practice and kind of learning how to be a real life lawyer. And so, yeah, so that I'm really happy to have been able to have those experiences. While I was at Freshfields, I was able to be seconded to their Hong Kong office for a few years, as well as their Madrid office. So I think of myself as some international lawyer without really knowing what international lawyer means.
That's pretty awesome. Tell me about where did the tech interest come from? Tell me about the tech side of things.
It's always been there. So I've always kind of been an early adopter of all things technology. And when technology started to get embedded within the legal sector, that's when I wanted to jump on board. So as an associate and senior associate, I was doing a lot of document automation with the workflows that I was doing. And this was all pre-AI. So now that I see all of the amazing things that are coming up, I just think, oh, I just wish that I would have had this tool or that tool to be able to really supercharge my workflows. So now I'm here kind of spreading the word, letting people know that these things exist and they really do help.
Yeah, perfect. I do think that it's so helpful to work with somebody who's got that experience and it comes from a place of real knowledge. And your role, so Legal Solutions Director, so you're working directly with customers, helping them with solutions.
Exactly. Yeah. So one of my main jobs is to work with customers to help them understand how to implement AI strategies, kind of what is needed behind the curtains in order to roll things out, what tools are needed for specific practice groups or practice areas, or even firms generally. So we kind of help parse through all the noise to help them understand what they need and help them to tell us what they need, and then work on making a plan to help implement all of those strategies to make their practices a success.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So today, just to talk through what we've got in store today. So it's very much a thought leadership discussion where we welcome, for those of you listening in, we welcome your thoughts and your experiences and actually encourage it. So in terms of the theme, so we're going to be looking at why we're still talking about data and why data readiness remains the defining issue, looking at some of the structural realities in law firms. There's quite a few law firms listening in, so it'd be great if you can jump in at that point and share your own thoughts. We're going to be looking at what specifically blocks AI projects and how AI can amplify both strengths and weaknesses. We're going to be looking at what data success looks like and what differentiates successful AI programs from unsuccessful ones. What's really great about having Brandall here is obviously you get to work with a load of different people, and you'll be able to, and Brandall is going to be sharing some experiences in terms of what works both from a kind of template perspective in terms of having a discovery list and all of the things that they've learned have worked, and also looking at some of the specific use cases in terms of what law firms are doing specifically, so practical lessons from the market, and looking at some of the approaches that customers are taking to strengthen their foundations before scaling. And I think that for me is sometimes the most interesting, because you can really learn from each other. You know, sometimes I think the theory is going to be awesome, and then talking about how some people are putting that into practice is going to be super helpful. But let's start at the very beginning. So why are we still talking about data? I think we know why, but why? What are you seeing? What are you seeing in the market in terms of what's really standing in the way?
Yeah, so from my perspective, data readiness is the defining issue in legal AI maturity. If you want to be successful in any sort of artificial intelligence rollout or any of these applications within organizations, you need to have a very, very strong base. I like to think of it as a large room full of filing cabinets. Let's imagine that you have all of your legal documents in those filing cabinets, but they're not labeled. You don't have any idea where any of the documents are within the filing cabinets. And then you go in, imagining you're an AI agent trying to find a specific document or a specific type of agreement that spans across industry. Are you going to be able to find it? Probably not. You're going to have to look through every single document in order to find the one that you're looking for. And so data readiness is like organizing everything inside those filing cabinets, making some sort of sense from all of the noise. And so for me, that is the number one.
So it's been great to see all the excitement from everybody and piling into projects. We always say, you know, there's a lot of encouragement to just start, you know, and when it comes to AI, just make a start. But are you seeing it's difficult, isn't it, to get that balance, because people are very excited, they want to join what you might call the AI bandwagon,
Yeah.
but they need to basically do their prep, and we'll come on to talk about that, but that's basically the inescapable reality.
It is. And especially when you have documents sprawl. I mean, I've worked with customers that have documents across multiple repositories, desktop computers of individual associates, and it's just a big mess. So how are you supposed to implement a generative AI layer on top of that knowledge if the AI is not even going to be able to find all of that knowledge or parse through all of the noise to be able to give the results that you as a legal practitioner are hoping to receive?
Yeah, and it's interesting, like, so I thought we have, you know, I've done a few webinars with NetDocs over the years, and we have talked about data before, and I wanted to dive into this again. I'm grateful for your time, because it's interesting that, you know, we've made so much progress. You know, we've, as an industry, you know, neither of us are belittling the progress that the industry's made, but what I hear is that the projects hit the buffers. So, and actually, I think maybe what we want to do is try and help people avoid that, because, you know, you put a lot of time, effort, it costs a lot of money, and it's frustrating. It causes people to be demoralized. And when I speak to particularly consultants, and I know we've got a couple of consultants on the listening in, that's, you know, it's really frustrating, because, you know, you feel like you're making progress, people are doing some exciting stuff, and then you hit the buffers because actually you haven't done the prep, which is hugely frustrating.
Oh, and it definitely is, especially in the context of change management. If you're not doing all of the preparation in order to have a successful change, you can have all the strategies on top of mess, but it's still going to be an underlying layer of mess. And I think that's why data readiness is such a crucial aspect of AI maturity.
Yeah. We're gonna dive into what data readiness means. I'm gonna make a note to remind myself just in case, because you know, we're gonna talk about what your definition is and how people get there. But yeah, so I'm excited about that. But so let's talk about more specifically. So obviously, in terms of the things that are causing stalling, you've talked about fragmented repositories, inconsistent metadata, siloed systems. Is that the core of what you're seeing in terms of the real blocks to AI projects?
Yeah, I think I would say so, but it's not just those those aspects, I would say it's also a lot of the change management that you spoke about. If we have very involved individuals within an organization that are championing the AI readiness and also just the change management, that is also a very critical component. So what we're seeing is twofold. Sometimes our customers are not ready because they don't have the underlying documentation that is in any organized fashion. Maybe it is the sprawled documentation. Maybe it is the siloed systems. Maybe it is just technology blocker for some reason. Or it could be that maybe there's just no organizational function where people are championing the AI usage, or maybe it's people that don't really understand the value of AI within the organization. And so it's a people problem, but also a technology problem. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that all of it is ready, because data readiness goes down to the filing cabinets all the way through to the top of management, because you can't be data ready if you don't have people that are involved and wanting to see a success.
I really like, we're going to talk a lot more about people, and I really like this emphasis on people, and I really like the real excuse me, the realism in the conversation. I think that's really helpful. You know, sometimes we are all tempted to talk about technology as a cure, but it takes a village, perhaps, you know, to help make sure that the technology does what it can do. In terms of so just looking at the metadata real quick. So I think you gave that really good example of the room with all of the documents, and I think everybody on this call is pretty techie, to be honest with you. But so we talk about how AI is amplified with data readiness and the benefits of having the correct metadata. I know you've sort of given quite good analogies about that as well, in terms of how much it helps with the speed of finding things.
Yeah, 100%. For us, it is the most significant investment that any organization can make, is becoming data ready in the form of metadata for all of their documentation. So something that we're helping customers do is profile the documents in their repositories. And we do this through the technology that we've developed in NetDocuments to go through and AI profile the documents in different practice areas or across the entire document repository to critically define what those documents are, a brief summary of those documents, who the parties to the contract are, for example, what the governing law is, who the judge is for a specific judgment, all of the different types of metadata that can then be used by AI to find easily. So let's say that you're in a litigation department and you are tasked with finding a specific motion in front of a specific judge to see how that judge has ruled in the past on that type of motion. So if you just had a big room full of filing cabinets that wasn't organized, how are you going to find that specific document? But if your documents are all AI profiled, the AI agent just has to go in and say, okay, I'm just looking for this type of motion in front of this judge. And then it goes from millions of documents down to a handful of documents. And that's where the real value comes in, because the AI agent doesn't have to read through every single document in your repository in a search function. All it has to do is say, oh, I know where this metadata lies, and I can find that quickly, and then I can give you an answer very quickly. And that's where the future of AI is. It's not on agents that are capable of combing through millions of documents. It's agents that are able to pinpoint with very exactness those documents that you are actually searching for.
Yeah. How does it work there? So these are huge exercises. So, you know, is there sort of a best practice in terms of making those sort of changes? Do you recommend, for example, and I know the answer, so I'm just going to so do you recommend diving in for the whole firm, Brandall, or do you reckon going practice by practice? I've had conversations about this, so I know you obviously recommend, you know, perhaps doing bite-sized chunks and making it, you know, but talk us through that.
Yeah, so I am lucky enough to work with a lot of customers on this specific topic, and the mantra that we go by is crawl, walk, run. You don't want to be just running into your DMS, profiling every single document, using a taxonomy that maybe you're not overly confident about. What we do is we say, okay, let's look at one practice group or even one partner and all of the transactions that they've worked on for the past 2 years. Let's profile all of those documents based on an agreed taxonomy to make sure that we have all of the correct metadata that you would look for. Because there's lots of practice areas where they call an agreement one specific thing that might not be the same thing that another law firm calls that exact type of agreement. And so having the metadata that is specifically tailored to the organization so that the search function works on supercharge instead of having to comb through different types of terminology for what is what you're looking for, but maybe other people call it differently. So what we do is we work practice area by practice area, make sure that it's a success before moving on to the next practice area. And this also really generates a lot of excitement within the firm because, I mean, lawyers, they are very competitive. They want to be winning. They want to use the best of the best. And so if they hear their colleagues in a different practice area using this type of technology and it's working, then they get very excited and they say, we're next, please, can we work on our practice area next? And we're seeing that excitement across organizations, which to me is magnificent because the change management sometimes is the hardest thing within organizations. But when you have the change management like a bubbling from within because people are just excited about the technology, that's when you get the real success.
How do they, what makes them excited? What are they seeing that, what are their colleagues doing that they can't do? How does that word of mouth spread? Sometimes it's very obvious in your face. How do they find out about this?
So a lot of times it's because it's working so well. So instead of doing a lexical search with Boolean type terminology to find the needle in the haystack, which usually you have to do dozens of searches to be able to pinpoint maybe a few documents that might be relevant. With the metadata, you're able to immediately find the documents that you're looking for, and you're just so quick at working that you're getting a lot more work done, and the word just spreads very quickly within the firm.
Okay. Okay, cool. So, in terms of, I feel like perhaps, just in terms of, maybe we jumped ahead slightly, but it doesn't matter because I feel like that's sort of diving down into the tech. But I know that, as you sort of prefaced, a lot of this is about people plus tech. And I know that one of the things that you do, which interests me, is you've created a kind of discovery list, or you've also created, from working with lots of firms, a kind of template or list of things that need to be in place, perhaps before you get to the tech bit, and I think that it would be really worth visiting what AI so would you say that firm, would you call it AI readiness, or how do you describe, it? Is AI readiness, and what would you say is sort of first on your list for firms? I feel like we're a bit further down the track. I don't want to suggest to people that this is somehow, we're at the beginning of the journey, but that this is not the case. But it's just more like I find it really interesting. You've been working with people, NetDocs has been working with firms for years, and it's just really interesting we're working towards what's working. So what would you say AI readiness, or what's on your discovery list?
Yeah, so that's exactly what we call it. We have a AI readiness checklist, and so we sit down with the KM leaders or the CIO of an organization, and we say, okay, look, we just want to meet you where you're at, so that we can start at the same place and work towards our common goal. And so a lot of the things on the checklist are questions like, do you have any associate groups or any AI organizational structure? Are there people that are championing this type of rollout? Are there people that are using AI in other formats, and maybe they're using AI from like Claude or the ChatGPTs of the world, and they're doing that in their personal life, but maybe not so much in their professional life? Do we have those types of people that we could tap into because they're already familiar with the use of AI? And then once we kind of understand the people part, then we move on to the policies part. Do you have any governance or usage policies around AI? Are there applications or use case scenarios that you have formulated within your organization that you want to abide by? And then once we have an understanding of the people, then the policies, then we can start talking about, okay, what does implementation look like? Is it going to be with a specific practice area that is AI ready? Is it for a specific practice area that has a very urgent goal that they want to accomplish with the use of AI? And then we can start going through the implementation checklist of, okay, who are we going to start with? What does success look like with this practice area? How does that flow into the other practice areas that we'll target? And so it's all about making AI usage sustainable and performing to the very best, so that the rollout is a success, because we all know that if the rollout becomes sticky, if it becomes difficult, people are going to walk away and they're not going to be excited, they're not going to be happy, and they're going to move on to the next shiny object that they think will solve their problems, but in reality it won't.
It's hard work, isn't it? It's just hard work. Like the reality is, where would you this is sort of springing it on you, but and you don't work with every firm under the sun, but like as in you personally, where would you say firms are? Would you say that there's quite a few that are far along, or would you say, how would you benchmark the industry right now, just off the top of your head?
Yeah, I mean, I think people have started in the last year or so with thinking about these issues, and they don't really know how to organize their thoughts around these issues, but they are thinking about it. And maybe some firms have had policies that have been drafted based on policies that they've seen in the community. Maybe there are a few associate groups that are kind of looking at AI because the firms are being bombarded with AI vendors saying, we have the next thing that will help you with all of your workflows. And so we are seeing that people are getting more excited, but I would say where most firms are still at a beginner phase where they really need to help understanding what change management looks like, what implementation looks like, what success looks like. Because a lot of times we know that there's issues. And the law firms know that they have workflows that could be utilizing AI to do something better or more efficiently. But it still is the question of, how do we get there? What do we need to do beforehand in order to make that a success? Because you can't just, AI deployments are not just set it and forget it. Like, you can't just say, okay, we're going to buy this piece of technology and it's going to be fantastic. We're going to tell our associates that we have it and then walk away and hope it's being used. It's never going to be happening. You need to have feedback loops. You need to have monitoring of outputs. You need to have retraining. You need to have governance around that specific type of AI. And so with the deployment of AI, there are so many things that we need to think about as an industry and at an organizational level that we want to help you with that, because we know how complicated it is. We have a winning formula that we have used and we've seen success in it. And so I guess for us, it's just, we want to help you help yourself.
Yeah. Do they that's interesting. Find champions of AI, I guess, who already have the capability. It's quite an exercise, isn't it? Like, is that just quite an interactive, so the firm's sort of reaching out to people, or is it, is there,
Yeah.
I used to work for a law firm, and is it just interesting from a very granular perspective as to how they do this? Do you just go, is it someone knows somebody and then they put them forward, or is there a way that it works best?
Yeah, so we've done all of the above. I think the important thing is finding those people. How you do that is organization by organization, but we have just done a survey of associates, for example, to see what their AI usage is. We've told partners, do you have anybody that is more technological minded for us to have a discussion with? And also there's a lot of law firms and organizations that have knowledge lawyers and knowledge management. And we go to them and we say, are any of you really interested in AI? What type of AI usage do you have? And then we kind of foster that mentality of, okay, AI is great. AI can be used. This is how I think we can do it. And let's talk more about it.
Yeah. And rather than, and they're sort of, so rather than being inflicted, they're helping to drive it, which I think is quite a key thing, isn't it?
Yeah, no, exactly. And especially with change management. And that's what I was telling you earlier about the excitement. We don't want to be the one that is sending an email on a weekly basis saying, why haven't you used this? This is so amazing. We want to be in a position where people are talking about it, where they they have spontaneity in saying, I want to use this tool, I want to learn it for myself because I've seen that it works. And whether they've seen it working through a demo or a training, we want them to find their own excitement. And so one of the tools that we use in making that excitement is having trainings or demos that are specific to a practice area. So you're not going to go into a demo with a litigation group and say, I have this great tool for an M&A transaction. Look at all this cool due diligence that we can conduct using AI. No, that's not a recipe for success. And so we take a very methodical approach to who our audience is, whether they're lawyers, whether they're business services, maybe whether they're just management that don't do legal work on a day-to-day basis, and then help them get excited, because once they get excited about maybe what their little niche is, then they're going to be excited about the product as a whole.
Yeah, completely. Tell me about, so you've already referenced taxonomy. Obviously, this is a huge topic, and can underpin success, or otherwise there needs to be an intelligent discussion on taxonomy.
Yes.
And again, I was going to say it's going to be specific to firms, but obviously there's been a big drive towards standardization. But where are you seeing firms at in this? I sometimes feel that firms should be much further along than they are, I'll be honest. But that's easy for me to say from the outside. And then B, are you seeing anything? Are you seeing, what would you say is proving most successful?
Yeah. So I think firms are relatively advanced with taxonomy, and I think that's just because for more than a decade, firms have had maybe a very small taxonomy where they wanted to have specific types of profiles for documents. I remember when I was a junior associate and I was working on large transactions, and we had maybe a purchase agreement that we wanted to have profiled to have in our document repository. And so I would have maybe 5 profiles that said, okay, who are the parties? What was the value amount, and maybe two or three other pieces of metadata. So I would profile those, and I would spend hours and hours and hours profiling documents. And so those pieces of taxonomy do exist, and firms have built on those in the past. So I do feel like firms do have a specific taxonomy. What we try to do is bring a more standardized taxonomy, because the taxonomy that we've created has been very successful in our rollouts, and that's because it's kind of like the Goldilocks of taxonomy. It's not too hot, not too cold. It's just right. It's not going to be everything for everybody, but it is going to be most things for most people. And so the taxonomy that we've created is about 100 profiles, and for some firms, that's way too much. For some firms, that's way too little. I mean, we had a firm that had almost 3,000 profiles. And to us, that's just not manageable, and it's not manageable for AI agents, and it's not helpful to have that in your underlying DMS. So what we try to coach our customers to do is to say, okay, let's try this taxonomy that NetDocuments has created. Let's use it, and then we can always add or subtract. And so we implement that, we profile the documents, we see how that works with the search function, we see how it works with the AI agents, and then if there are specific profiles that are missing, then we can always add it. That's the easiest thing in the world. But what we don't want to do is start with a mess and try to clean up the mess later. We want to start with something that is very organized, very structured, and then build upon it or detract from it.
Yeah. It's that expression, isn't it? Don't let perfect get in the way of good.
Oh,
you know,
and
like
and lawyers love perfect. That's the problem.
it's so true, isn't it? It's like, you got to have something workable that you can build on, and that the temptation is to just go for perfect, but actually something that's really good is is a good start.
Totally. And one thing I do want to say is something I call pilot purgatory. And with that, that's when lawyers are looking for something that's perfect. You have endless POCs with no path to production. You're saying, I'm not going to release this unless it's 100% perfect for everybody within my firm. And then that is just going to be a vicious, vicious cycle for organizations. And I have one customer that was like that. And it was very hard to break that loop where we had to have everything perfect, because it was a purgatory for everyone, for the organization, for us as a provider of the service. And so we really try to set expectations that we are great at what we do. AI is really advanced in so many ways across many vendors in the market. But what you can expect is perfection from us, from any other vendor in the market, and even from your associates or people within your organization. You can't expect that perfection.
No, it's such a, as a former lawyer myself, I know, and no doubt you can relate to this as well. You know, we do have this trait. I remember when I first became a journalist and just spent hours trying to craft something, and my editor at the time went, it doesn't have to be the only view, it just has to be a view, and you just have to send it to me now. Oh, you're fine. So fine. You've talked about, I just want to revisit as well. So you've talked about the role of AI. You know, I've talked extensively to NetDocuments about AI profiling and leveraging AI to then you've done the work to fix the problem. But I know that you talk about that people still it's not just about the technology, but it's also then about the people. You know, it's not in terms of even the AI profiling. Talk me through that.
Yeah, so yes, we really like to depend on the people, because we know that the people that we're working with are highly educated, they're intellectual, they're driven, they want to be successful in their role in their organizations. And so what we do is we focus on the technology, like we said, we find out what technology will work best for a specific organization, and simultaneously work with those people to make sure that that technology becomes a success. And so this goes back to the champions. This goes back to the associate groups, to the KM team that is maybe overseeing this, or even the IT team that is overseeing the implementation. And so what we've seen be most successful within an organization is just having that people aspect, because that's who we're working with on a daily basis. We want to make sure that they're ready, that they feel equipped, that they feel knowledgeable in the rollout. And maybe that means more train the trainer sessions. Maybe that means that we train their associates and have them listen in to see how we do our demos, or how we train on specific pieces of technology. But we're always thinking about, how do we make these people a success within their organization? Because our greatest success is if the people that we're working with succeed. And so if it's a CIO that maybe just entered an organization, they're trying to make a splash, they want to make sure that they're doing something that's successful, we want to make them shine, not the technology behind everything that we're working on. If we can make that CIO shine, then we've done our job, because we've done a successful implementation.
And I also think so. We've touched on this, but in the context of the AI profiling, obviously this is a newer capability. It's really exciting, and it solves a lot of problems, and you know, has huge potential. But I think the message around that you're not trying to package it up as if on its own it solves everything is really important. You know, I think that's quite important to everyone. Maybe everyone knows it, but I think I've been a bit guilty of you know, in your reporting, when you get new technologies come out, you sort of, you know, sometimes can be guilty of writing it as the panacea to everything. But actually, it takes work. It can only still work if you've got that combination of people, process, and technology.
Totally. And I think of it as AI on top of chaos. We talk about AI on top of chaos in the context of a DMS, where if your filing cabinets are not organized in any way, then that's chaos. But also AI on top of an organizational chaos, where people don't really know what the objective is. They don't really know where they fit into the change management or the implementation. That's chaos to us, because we want everybody to have very clear expectations, very clear strategies, and very cohesive strategies to be able to make the implementation or the change a success. And so people can be a chaos factor too, and we want to try to avoid that.
So let's talk about specific examples. So what are you seeing in terms of what customers are doing that's perhaps working well? You're working with a lot of people. What can you share? I know that's quite a broad question, but it could be across any number of things. So whether they're doing anything successfully with metadata or whatever, you know, if something's jumped out for you as, you know what, this would be great to share with the audience as to what's working well.
Yeah, I think the main thing that we've seen working really well is the profiling of their documents in their DMS. So once they're able to use those profiled metadata to be able to search, filter, understand the knowledge that is in their repository, that's when people have started seeing the most success. And how do we get there? Well, first we profile all the metadata. We need to understand from a document repository standpoint where to start, how to progress this, how far back do we want documents to be profiled. So all of those decisions. But then once we do have those profiled documents, then it's all about helping spread the word within the organization. And so to do that, we do a lot of drop-in sessions within a law firm, for example. This last month, I traveled to 3 different cities, to 3 different offices of this large law firm to train associates in how to use AI within the NetDocuments DMS. We trained them on upcoming releases like semantic search and really cool things that we're working on to help them do their workflows better. So we do a lot of trainings. We also do office hours. So we'll have weekly office hours where we say, okay, Thursdays at 10 a.m., we're going to be online, and all associates are welcome to drop in and just ask a question, leave whenever they want, and we can answer those questions. And we've had a lot of success with that because sometimes people don't want to join an hour-long demo. They just want to have their question answered and then go back to their billable work because that's much more valuable to them. And so those office hours have been really, really great. Another thing is making sure that the organization is equipped. And so that's training the trainer. And so we have a lot of train the trainer sessions. And we don't just train the knowledge management team or the implementation team. We train the IT departments because a lot of times associates will call up IT and say, okay, I'm on this platform. I'm trying to do this type of search. This is a technological problem to me because for them, all of it's technology. So they're going to reach out to IT many times and ask those questions. So we want to make sure that the relevant people within an organization are equipped to answer the questions that come their way because those questions are inevitable. They come to us all the time through direct messages on our platform or calls to NetDocuments, but they also go to a lot of different people within an organization. And so a lot of times the success looks like equipping those people with the answers to the questions that will most commonly come.
Are you finding enthusiasm for training? I feel like there's such a difference from when I was younger. There's obviously tech is a very different place, and perhaps people just understand the inevitability. Perhaps the tech is easier to use, but I mean, training can be a challenge. Is it working? Are people engaging enthusiastically? As you mentioned, the billable time. People sometimes taken away, even if they know they've got to do it. It can be quite tricky. Are you finding that people are really engaged with it?
It depends. It depends on the enthusiasm of the head of the organization where we're working with. So if we have a knowledge management team that is kind of fostering enthusiasm, sending out really, really short but effective emails talking about the upcoming trainings that are going to be occurring, that's when we see the enthusiasm. And I think that over the last year, we've seen enthusiasm in the industry really skyrocket because people know that AI is the future. And if you don't start using AI now in an effective manner, 3 years from now, you will be obsolete. You will not be able to perform your job at a level that other of your competitors or peers are performing their job. And so people are getting a little nervous thinking, okay, if I don't understand this technology, what am I going to be doing in 3 years? And so there has been the enthusiasm, but also a little bit of a panic thinking, I really need to learn this and I really need to understand this. So if something's not clicking for me, I need to try a little harder. And so we've seen the whole gambit of people coming in to the trainings with different perspectives on why they're there. But the common theme is that people want to learn. And this isn't something that is a training that's obligatory within a practice group. I don't think that we've ever said that a training is obligatory. It's people that are coming to the training because they want to learn. So that's the enthusiasm we like to see, and it has been successful. Yeah.
Yeah, they've got that fire, haven't they? I was at Legal Week, as were you, and there was the first session of the day. There was a lawyer on stage who said, "AI won't replace." There's an expression that lawyers who can't use AI will be replaced by lawyers who can. He said, AI is just going to replace all lawyers. Like panicked. So we'll just go with the version that you just said, which is
yeah. No, I don't believe AI is going to replace lawyers. I just think that AI is going to help lawyers do much better quality work and in a much better fashion.
Yeah, I think he was a hot, they called it a hot take. Fine. So let's do in the last sort of few minutes, I think so perhaps again, I feel like everyone's not at the beginning, but where to start, what to avoid. I guess that it's interesting that you said that a lot of firms are very much in the early stages of their journey, and perhaps important for firms to note, like I feel like because we're not at the early stages. I suppose it depends what you call early, but we've been at this Gen AI thing for quite a long time. It takes a lot of effort, but it's got to be done. So take stock of where you're at. I guess every firm is at a different stage of their journey, a different juncture. So I suppose you have to do a big exercise around your people. And do you have sort of we've perhaps talked about your discovery checklist, but in terms of sort of starting to give some takeaways, do you have like a sort of a list of takeaways?
Yeah, I think I don't want to repeat myself, so I'll try to say the other takeaways that I haven't talked about. But the takeaways that I have spoken about are making sure that your data is ready, making sure that your organization's ready, make sure that you have a coherent strategy. But there's other things like understanding what AI your organization is using now. You could have a host of AI technologies that are incorporated into the workflows of various attorneys or legal practitioners within your organization. And you need to understand what those are. Because if you have a stack of 15 different AI vendors within your technology stack, then what are they doing for you? You need to understand that Copilot isn't going to be writing your pleadings, but Copilot's a great use case for calendaring, for emails, for kind of organizational things. So you need to understand what your AI is doing and how your legal practitioners are using the AI that they currently have. And so I think that's one of the big things, because we don't want to be duplicating AI across 15 different vendors. You really need to narrow it down to the use cases that are core to your practice and train your legal practitioners in how to use it. So I would say that's a big thing, is just understanding what you have and understanding where you want to go.
I actually couldn't agree more. I feel like firms need to have a sort of a process and know where different technologies come in. I feel like at the moment it's a little bit ad hoc, and actually people, they're finding their way, and you almost need to have like a map of, and then that enables you to start to automate it as well. I think things need to be, and although it seems to take a really long time, then obviously the time savings will come in terms of when you're starting to automate a lot more. It's going to take less time, but I do feel like there's a lot more ad hoc use of AI right now. I suppose it's fair enough for quite early on, but some of it's a little concerning, around perhaps the way that people are using Copilot, for example. For a lot of people are using it for legal research. That comes up all the time, and how to prevent people from doing that. It's a challenge.
Yeah, and that's another thing that brings me back to what I said about the set it and forget it mindset of AI deployment. You can't just buy 15 different AI tools and expect your attorneys to use them in the correct manner. And just like you said, you can't use Copilot for legal research. That's going to really hinder your legal practitioners in so many different ways. And so that goes back to what I said about training. So once we're involved and we're helping an organization understand what AI technology they have and how to best utilize that technology, that's really, really key. And whether that's coming from us as a DMS provider, or if it's coming from within your organization of somebody that just understands what technology is existing within the organization.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you're taking quite a holistic approach, really.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's necessary, because if you're not looking at every aspect of the implementation, from the technology to the people to the strategy, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a real challenge. I think it comes back also to the policy, doesn't it? And really, really reinforcing that policy, which is obviously high on your list of, not just have you got a policy, but does everyone know the policy, and are you continuously reinforcing the policy at the point of use? I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's all very well having a policy. I don't know. Different firms do things in different ways, but having a policy that was done ages ago and people don't know it at the point of need, I think is unhelpful.
Agreed. Yes, 100%.
So we've done the takeaways. So we covered all the takeaways. I think we're there. Is there anything else that I haven't asked you?
No, I think that's it. This was a very lovely conversation with you, Caroline.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you, Brandel. I think it's good to hear, of the I like the holistic approach you're taking, and these sort of the takeaways in terms of both your sort of your templates, and some of the experiences that the firms have been having and what they found useful. I think will hopefully be really useful to people listening in. So thank you to everybody listening, and thank you so much, Brandel, for your time too.
My pleasure. And thank you, everybody.